I live in a city that never stops talking. Cars hum beneath my window like restless children, buses sigh at every stop, and the rhythm of shoes on pavement becomes a language of its own, hurried, impatient, alive. Every morning, when the light begins to break through my curtains, I wake to this endless murmur of life, and for a moment, I imagine it's the sound of a world that has what I don't: beginnings. I've always wanted to be a mother. Even when I was little, I never dreamed of grand careers or glittering cities. I dreamed of lullabies. I used to cradle my dolls and whisper their names like they were real: Sarah, Noah, Lily. When I married, I thought the rest would come naturally, like the seasons do. But life in this city, this modern, glittering, sterile world, doesn't follow nature's rhythm. It follows rules written in sterile ink, printed on medical forms, signed by tired doctors who speak in gentle tones about probabilities and percentages. It's been 7 years since I first tried to have a baby. 7 years of hope, of quiet heartbreak, of silent prayers whispered into hospital hallways that smell like antiseptic and sorrow. 7 years of watching other women's bellies grow round with life while mine remained an empty plain. Every test, every injection, every round of treatment, each became a ritual of waiting. Waiting for results, waiting for the next appointment, waiting for the next faint line that never appeared on a pregnancy test. The city outside kept growing. New buildings rose like miracles from dust, friends moved into bigger apartments, colleagues shared photos of their children's birthdays. But my world shrank, to hospital rooms, test results, and the quiet ache of hope. My husband, Ethan, tried to stay strong for both of us. He would hold my hand and say, "It's going to be okay," even when I could see the fear behind his eyes. At first, we laughed through the pain. We told ourselves it was just a matter of time. We made jokes about our future child, our little tornado, we called him. We even picked names: Mia, if it was a girl; Lucas, if it was a boy. But as the years passed, laughter turned into silence. We stopped saying their names. We stopped making space in our dreams. Infertility doesn't just live inside your body, it creeps into your marriage, your friendships, your identity. It turns love into measurement charts and ovulation schedules. It replaces spontaneity with appointments. It teaches you how to smile at baby showers while your heart collapses quietly behind your ribs. Sometimes at night, I would wake up and find Ethan staring at the ceiling. His breathing was heavy, his eyes open, lost. Once, I asked him what he was thinking. He said, "I just wonder if you'll ever forgive me if this is my fault." That broke me, because I had been thinking the same thing. I started to avoid people after that. It wasn't their fault, but I couldn't stand the questions, the polite curiosity that always carried hidden pity. "When are you two having kids? You've been married a while now, haven't you? Oh, you'll be such a good mom someday." I learned to smile through those questions, to deflect with humor, to say, "We're just enjoying life right now." But when I went home, I cried into the kitchen sink so no one could hear. The sound of the city outside, the laughter from the cafe below, the distant cry of a baby from the next apartment, only made the silence in my home louder. Ethan began working late. At first, I didn't think much of it. The city demands it, everyone here chases something. But soon, the space between us grew like a wound that wouldn't close. When he came home, we spoke in small sentences: "How was your day? Did you eat? I'm tired." We stopped touching. We stopped trying. Because I knew he was right, but I didn't know how to stop wanting what my heart had built its life around. The next few months felt like walking through fog. Without the clinic visits and the medications, I didn't know what to do with myself. I went to work, came home, scrolled through social media, and watched other people's lives bloom. My job, in a sleek glass office overlooking the city, felt hollow. Everyone around me was chasing promotions, vacations, love stories, families. I was chasing silence. One evening, after work, I found myself wandering into a park. The trees were strung with tiny lights, and a group of children were playing tag. Their laughter echoed like bells through the air. I sat on a bench, pretending to scroll my phone, but really I was watching them, every movement, every giggle, every stumble. Then a small boy, maybe 4 years old, tripped and fell near me. I rushed forward and helped him up. His hands were small and warm. His eyes looked up at me, wide and tearful. "Are you okay?" I asked. He nodded, sniffling. "My mom says I'm brave." I smiled, even as my heart twisted. "She's right." His mother came running a moment later, breathless, thanking me. I watched them walk away, hand in hand, and something inside me cracked open, not from pain this time, but from longing that was still alive, even after everything. Months turned into a year. Ethan and I drifted further apart until one day, he didn't come home. We talked briefly, and agreed it was over, not because we stopped loving each other, but because love had become a battlefield we couldn't keep fighting on. The divorce was quiet. No shouting, no bitterness, just two people signing papers under fluorescent lights, both wondering how dreams can dissolve so completely. After he left, I moved to a smaller apartment. It was high up, the 24th floor, with a view of the skyline. I liked watching the city lights flicker on at night, one window at a time, like constellations being born. I told myself that maybe, just maybe, I could start again. But loneliness in the city is a strange creature. It hides behind noise. You can be surrounded by millions of people, yet feel unseen. I filled my days with work, my nights with movies, my weekends with cleaning. But the silence remained. Then one rainy evening, I saw a notice posted near the elevator. Community center volunteers needed, children's reading program. I don't know what made me call the number. Maybe it was the word children. Maybe it was the ache that never really left. Either way, I found myself at the community center that Saturday morning, surrounded by laughter and chaos and crayons. The first day, I read The Very Hungry Caterpillar to a group of kids sitting cross-legged on the floor. They listened with wide eyes, interrupting me every few minutes with questions. When I finished, a little girl with messy pigtails hugged my leg and said, "You read nice." That night, for the first time in years, I smiled without forcing it. The weeks that followed brought something new, something I hadn't felt in a long time: purpose. I started volunteering every weekend. The children came from different backgrounds, some from single-parent homes, some from shelters, some from families barely holding together. They weren't mine, but when they looked at me with trust, I felt something awaken in me. There was one boy in particular, Daniel. He was quiet, always sitting in the back of the room, drawing. His mother had passed away 2 years ago, one of the staff told me. His father worked double shifts and rarely came. Daniel's drawings were beautiful but lonely, houses with no people, skies without sun. One day, after class, I sat beside him. "That's a beautiful drawing," I said. He shrugged. "It's just a picture." "Where are the people?" I asked. He looked at me, serious. "They left." Something about the way he said it, so calm, so final, tore through me. After that, we began to talk more. He told me about his school, about how he hated math, about how he liked airplanes. I brought him colored pencils one day, and his face lit up like dawn. Weeks passed, and our bond grew. When I walked into the classroom, he would run to show me his drawings first. Once he drew me, stick figure style, standing beside him under a tree. Above it, he had written in uneven letters, "My friend." I didn't cry there, but when I got home, I did. Because for the first time in years, I felt that maybe, I didn't need to give birth to be someone's mother. One evening, as I was leaving the center, I ran into one of the coordinators. She smiled warmly and said, "You're really good with them. Have you ever thought about fostering?" The question hung in the air like a fragile dream. Fostering. I had heard of it, of course, but never thought it was something for me. I wasn't sure if I was strong enough to love and let go. But that night, as I sat by my window watching the city lights shimmer, I realized, maybe motherhood isn't about possession. Maybe it's about presence. Maybe it's about loving without guarantee. Over the next few months, I began attending information sessions. I filled out forms, went through interviews, home visits. It was a long, exhausting process, full of bureaucracy and waiting, but this time, the waiting didn't hurt. It felt like waiting for purpose. And then one day, I got a call. A boy, 7 years old. His name, Daniel. The world stood still. The same Daniel from the community center. His father had been injured in an accident and couldn't care for him temporarily. They needed a foster parent, someone he already trusted. I said yes. When Daniel came to stay with me, it felt both familiar and terrifying. The first night, he stood in the hallway clutching a small backpack, looking around uncertainly. I showed him his room, small but warm. He placed his bag on the bed and turned to me. "Can I keep the light on?" he asked. "Of course," I said. He nodded, then looked at me. "Good night." I stood at his door long after he fell asleep, listening to his breathing. The quiet that used to feel like emptiness now felt full of something living, something fragile and beautiful. Days turned into weeks. We developed a routine: breakfast together, school drop-offs, reading time, laughter. The apartment that once echoed with loneliness now filled with footsteps, questions, and tiny socks on the couch. One morning, as I was making pancakes, he came up behind me and said, "Can I call you something?" "Sure," I said, smiling. "What do you want to call me?" He hesitated, then whispered, "Can I call you Mom?" The spatula slipped from my hand. I turned around, tears already forming, and knelt down. "You can call me whatever you want, sweetheart." He smiled, and in that moment, I knew that all the years of pain, all the nights I cried into silence, all the broken dreams, they had led me here. Not to the child I thought I'd have, but to the child I was meant to love. Months later, when his father recovered, Daniel went back home. The day he left, I helped him pack his bag. He hugged me tightly and said, "I'll visit, right?" "Of course," I said, even though my throat burned with tears. After he left, the apartment was quiet again, but not the same kind of quiet. It wasn't emptiness anymore. It was peace. Because I realized that I hadn't lost something, I had gained understanding. That motherhood isn't just about giving life, it's about giving love. That families can be born in many ways, through blood, through choice, through kindness. I still walk through the city every morning. The noise no longer feels like mockery. It feels alive. I see mothers with children, and instead of pain, I feel warmth. Because I know that in some small corner of this vast city, a little boy might be drawing under a bright window, thinking of me. Sometimes when the night is very still, I imagine a cradle, not empty anymore, but filled with memories. Laughter, drawings, pancakes, bedtime stories. And I whisper softly to myself, I became a mother after all. And outside the city hums, not as noise this time, but as a lullaby.